Hey, everybody. I'm Rebecca from Thieving at Our Farm.
And I'm Leah with Southern Biophiliac Urban Farm.
And we are two Chix Coturnix bringing you the scoop
Not the poop.
on Coturnix quail. so, today we wanted to bring you another 2 cents with two chicks and talk about Celadon. So, Leah, I don't know about you, but I see a lot of misinformation and
Oh,
myths.
there's tons out there.
Yeah. And so we thought today we would talk about some of that misinformation and maybe kind of debunk Celadon a little bit. Leah, what's the biggest thing that you see? Well, actually, let's start with what is Celadon. We should probably start there.
Yes. So Celadon is a Coturnix that carries two copies of a recessive gene that makes the eggshells blue.
Okay. And it's important to note here while we're talking about blue eggshells that just because the eggshell is blue does not mean that it's Celadon. Celadon is a very specific gene that will make all of that bird's eggs blue. And it's a very specific color. And they sometimes have speckles and sometimes don't have speckles. And if they do have speckles, a good way to know that it's a Celadon egg and not a just regular Coturnix egg that just happens to be a blue color is that those speckles are usually raised and you can kind of like even scratch them off with your fingernail. So if a bird lays Celadon, it's pretty much going to lay Celadon for its entire life. Although if you want to get technical, there have been a couple of times where something happens to the bird where basically that gene is kind of turned off. So that bird will lay Celadon for almost its entire life and then one day just not lay Celadon anymore. But that's kind of rare.
Yeah, and I heard that can happen with stress.
Yeah. So, okay, now that we're talking about blue on the eggs, let's talk about the inside of the egg. This is the big one.
This is
Does blue on the inside of the egg mean that bird is carrying Celadon?
The answer is no.
Right. Blue on the inside of the egg is a normal color for the inside of a quail egg. And we know that you can have quail eggs with blue on the inside without having Celadon because in Australia, they have blue on the inside of their eggs and the Celadon gene does not exist in Australia. So there's lots of birds there with blue on the inside of their eggs. That doesn't mean anything.
Yes, lots of them.
So that's a big myth. What about plumage color? Does Celadon
this is one that gets me every time. Every time.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about that. Is Celadon associated with a certain color or a pattern like tuxedo or range or anything like that?
Nope. Celadons can come in any single Coturnix color of the rainbow.
Yep. And so like we could take a minute to kind of break this down and understand why more Celadon birds that you see on the market happen to be like roux and tuxedo. And that's because when Celadon first appeared on the market, the biggest breeder out there was selling a line, it was Southwest Game Birds, that they had worked on and perfected the Celadon gene in that line. And it just so happened that he really liked the idea of having a patriotic quail, a red, white, and blue quail. so he, made that line. It was a scarlet and red range Celadon tuxedo. Oh my goodness. Let's try that again. Scarlet and red range tuxedo Celadon. So you get red, white, and blue. And because he was a very popular breeder, a very well-known and trusted breeder, a lot of people bought from him. And so a lot of people then raised his birds and then started selling his birds. And so that's why so many out there are roux and tuxedo. That's where that came from. Little history lesson.
But you can have a tuxedo bird and they're going to lay speckled eggs.
Right. Yeah. Just because your bird is tuxedo doesn't mean it's Celadon. Right. And just because you have a red range bird or red range tuxedo or scarlet tuxedo does not mean it's going to be Celadon. So, yes.
Exactly. The other thing I wanted to debunk.
Yes.
Is that Celadon is not a separate breed of quail.
Correct.
I hear this one all the time. It drives me bonkers.
Yes. It is a Coturnix. It is the same as any other Coturnix. It just happens to have a gene that makes the eggs blue. That's it. Yep. Okay, so I used to breed chickens. Well, I still breed chickens, but I used to breed chickens with pretty colored eggs. Now I just breed chickens with white eggs. But back in the day, you could mix and match chickens, and you could take a brown egg laying chicken and cross it with a blue egg laying chicken, and you could get a green egg laying chicken. Let's talk about that with
and
quail.
A ton of other colors nowadays.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, totally. So does that work with quail?
Unfortunately, it does not.
I wish it did.
I wish it did.
I know.
Yeah.
So, the big thing is that Celadon is a recessive gene. So you have to have 2 copies to see it. And so you have to, in order to have 2 copies of that gene, you won't have other genes in there that are influencing it. The Celadon kind of overrides other stuff. So where in chickens you have a blending of the genes, so you have the blue kind of blending with the brown, and it kind of makes a green shade. You can't have that in quail. That may have been a little oversimplified.
Figure it out.
So, maybe
if anybody
someday
does find olive egg or quail, let me know.
Yeah, maybe someday through selective breeding or something, somebody will be able to, get a Celadon, the Celadon egg color to be, a slightly shaded green, or I don't know, something. But yeah, unfortunately, you can't cross a regular quail with a Celadon quail and get green eggs. Okay, Leah, we've talked about blue eggs, green eggs, brown eggs. What is a true blue line? Let's talk about that.
So a true blue line is a line that is Celadon. The parents carry both copies of the blue egg gene so that you know that the offspring coming out will have the blue egg gene as well and will lay blue eggs.
Got it. So in other words, every single bird produced from that line is going to have 2 copies of the Celadon gene and will always produce blue eggs, right?
Correct.
Okay. So why is that important?
And they might not be tuxedos.
Right. They might not be tuxedos. So why is that important? Like, what happens if, how could you buy all blue eggs from a breeder and then have chicks hatch that don't lay blue? How does that happen?
Usually the rooster that they have with the hens, because if you think you have true blue hens, your rooster might not be carrying both copies of that blue egg gene. Mm-hmm. Therefore, the offspring will not lay blue.
Yeah. Being a recessive gene, they have to inherit that Celadon gene from both parents. And the hard thing is because Celadon is an eggshell colored gene and not a plumage gene, you can't look at the bird and know if it's Celadon or not. So you can't look at the rooster and go, oh, this is a Celadon rooster, and put it in with your hens. You have to really know. And if you don't know, you have to test breed multiple generations.
Yes.
So it's important.
You have to be 100% sure.
Yes. It's important if you're buying Celadon eggs from somebody and you want to continue having Celadon birds, you want to make sure that you either check the listing and make sure it says true blue, or ask the breeder. Because sometimes people don't understand that the rooster plays a role in it. They're just looking at the eggs the hen is laying.
Right.
And that rooster is just as important, super important in a Celadon line, because you can't tell if he's, has 2 copies of the gene or not.
Right. I
So
believe there are some laboratories trying to find where that gene is located, but I don't think they've gotten there yet.
yeah, that is true. With chickens, you can just, send a sample in and they can tell you if the bird has, copies of the blue gene and stuff, but they're not quite there yet with quail. I'm sure it won't be long. That would be pretty great.
It would be awesome.
Okay, so let's do a quick recap. Celadon is an eggshell gene. It is not a separate breed.
It's not all tuxedos.
Blue inside the eggshell does not mean that it is a Celadon carrier.
And you can't get olive eggers out of mixing a blue egg layer with a speckled egg layer.
Yep. And not all blue eggs, I don't know that we talked about this in depth, but not all blue eggs are Celadon. So there is a natural variation in the color of Coturnix quail eggs. And sometimes they can look on have a little bit of a bluish tint, but not be Celadon. So that would be something else to consider.
And if you're wanting a true blue line, make sure that you inquire with the breeder that the line is true.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Have a good night. Make sure to like and subscribe.
Bye.